This is Jake with the Ugly Bug Fly Shop, and today we're going to be tying a Sparkle Belly Skinny Squirrel Leech. We're going to start this fly out with, of course, thread to match the pine squirrel, but I like the UTC Ultra 140 thread. And we're going to start this thread about, a little over a quarter inch behind the eye of the hook. It's kind of a stopping point to tie in our pine squirrel here, so we'll get our thread established here and wind that down towards about the point of the hook is kind of where we're wanting to stop there. And we will tie in our pine squirrel here. This particular pattern we are using brown, but you can tie it in a variety of colors. So what we're going to try to do is kind of measure the tail about the hook length and tie it in. I like to give it about 2 or 3 good anchoring wraps there to hold that in. And once we have that, we will move the thread forward and create a dubbing loop. And with that, what you will do is basically double the thread over itself, wrapping back on itself. After I've done that, I like to wrap the thread around the loop about 3 times, securing that dubbing loop in place. And then I will wrap my thread towards the eye of the hook, stopping just short of it there. So what we will do next is we will grab our dubbing tool, which will help us spin our dubbing loop. For this particular pattern, we're using orange ice dub for the belly. And on this one, I like to pull out just enough that I can put that in the dubbing loop to wrap towards the eye of the hook. So once I kind of have that, what I will do is work it into my dubbing loop. So we will slowly kind of slide that in there, kind of trying to even it out so we have an even amount on both ends of the loop. Be a little tricky here. And once I kind of have that set the way I like, I will proceed to spin this, forming the loop. And you can spin this about as tight as you want to spin it, depending on how tight you want your loop to be. On this one, I'm not going to spin it real tight, so I have a little bit of loose stuff to give a little more movement and action. Once you have your loop, you can also kind of pick out a little bit if it's too thick or too thin, so that way you can kind of have your proportions correct there. And the next step is we will just wrap this forward. Laying one wrap next to the other until we get to our stopping point there, and we will tie it off. Do a couple anchor wraps there to lock that into place. And at this point right here, you can also grab like a dubbing brush or anything like that, or a pick to kind of pick this out if you would like to give it a little bit more life, or trim it if you don't want it to have as much. It's kind of up to you what you want to do. So the next step, we will kind of split the pine squirrel right down to the leather there and tie in, repeating the same process we did on the first one, about 2 or 3 securing wraps. We'll kind of move everything out of the way, move the thread forward, and what we will proceed to do is to palmer the pine squirrel. I like to do about 2 wraps of pine squirrel so it gives it a nice head on it, but not too bulky. So after our second wrap, kind of part that pine squirrel again and tie off. I like to do just a couple wraps and then move the thread forward, cut off your excess. Just a couple more wraps and then we will whip finish this fly off. About 5 wraps or so. And you can certainly add some head cement here for a little more durability and everything else, but that is the Ugly Bug Skinny Squirrel Sparkle Belly Leech.